For some individuals, there appears to be an increasing interest in what are known as total institutions. And so you have some individuals, some collectives that are moving in the direction of total institutions and becoming a part of what are known as total institutions. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about what total institutions are, what they are all about, how they are structured, and the implications for them. The other thing that we are going to touch on right now is how total institutions appear to be more comfortable, more familiar to those who are familiar with or at home in Gotham. And so if you are not familiar with Gotham, Gotham is the fictitious place in which Batman lives. And so the cartoon character Batman, this is the area that Batman lives in. Now, when you first look at Gotham, it looks like Gotham. However, when you separate out Gotham, it's very clear that this is the home of Gog. And so you have Got and you have Ham, and Ham is another word for home. And so this is the home of Got. And there is a place in Gotham or Gotham known as Arkham Asylum. And so again, you have that Ark and Ham. And so the home of Ark. So we're going to use that as a jump off into this discussion about this movement into total institutions. And as we look at this dynamic, this growth of total institutions, one of the questions that people have to ask themselves is, are you a person who needs to be invited to every party? Is every party for you? And so is Gotham for you? And of course, if perhaps this is a part of your ancestry, this whole dynamic is familiar to you, perhaps the whole Gotham dynamic will feel comfortable. But for many individuals, that may not be the direction that they are going in. And so some individuals are moving in a more organic direction. And so we're going to break this down so that you can see what it looks like. We're going to use an example because there is a building that is going up that is a prototype of Gotham or Gotham. The structure of it, it is a total institution in the making. Now, it's an odd total institution because it's in a situation that you don't typically see total institutions, but that is what it is structured to be. And so when you start to look at it and you start to think about it and you start to contemplate what a total institution is all about, you might want to start thinking about, is that the environment that's going to bring out the best in you, or is that something that's not going to bring out the best in you? Again, we've talked about Gog, and all of that and what that means and the implications of that. And so we're going to see what this looks like in action as we are going forward. And so just go along with us for this ride. And so here you can see this building that is planning to go up. Interestingly, this building is slated to be a dormitory for college students, and it is supposed to be completed in 2025 along with a number of other projects. The description of this building, however, doesn't sound anything like a traditional dormitory that is structured for student development and community and growth and to facilitate the overall academic experience. This building basically looks like a prison. There's nothing else that really looks like this other than a prison. And as we look at the discussion about the building, you can see that it definitely fits with what we're going to talk about with respect to a total institution. And you can see why it then resembles a prison. And we use this analogy to Arkham Asylum because total institutions grow out of this idea from Goffman, this idea of asylums. And so asylums, or these total institutions, are Bureaucratic places, they are institutions that are marked by physical isolation. So the people are separated from the world outside of the institution. And so all of the activities of daily living take place within the confines of the institution. And so you think of places like prisons, you think of places like hospitals, boarding schools where children do not go home, military, think about basic training, boot camp, religious orders. And if you are familiar with the Stanford prison study, you know that this was an experiment related to total institutions and the engineering of bad actors, because total institutions seem to breed bad actors, people misbehaving. Now, Zimbardo believed that this was based upon the Lucifer effect. And so the suggestion was that in certain situations, even nice people will do bad things. And so in these total institutions, you see this situation of extreme order. And when you have this level of extreme order, you also have manipulation as a part of it. And that is part of what came out of the Stanford prison study. And things went bad so quickly that they actually had to stop this experiment. And again, if you are not familiar with the experiment, students played the role of jailers, and students played the role of inmates. And in many instances, people took their roles a little too seriously. So now back to this interesting building. So this building is supposed to be 11 stories and 1.68 million square feet. And there will be 4,500 students in this structure. Now, what's interesting about the structure, you see what appears to be windows on the outside. However, this is a structure that is only going to have a few windows. And when you look at this, this building is only going to have 2 entrances. Now, there are some people who are criticizing this massive dorm project as a psychological experiment. And so you're going to see a little bit more about why and about the issues with this, because again, there is a movement in a direction of having more buildings similar to this and living in situations similar to this. And so this goes right back to the discussion we had about the God complex. And so when you have these total institutions, you have people who are over the total institutions, you have people who are over the inmates in the institution. And when those individuals are in those positions, they take on these dynamics of being God. So they take on these dynamics of being in total control over the lives of other people. And so again, not everyone is interested in that type of position. And so you only have certain people who are even interested in working in these types of situations. You only have certain types of people who are interested in running these types of situations. And so it's not something that creates the person. It's something that the person is drawn to based upon what is inside of them. So they are drawn to what is on the outside by what is on the inside. And so in other words, they are control freaks. And here is another picture of this supposed dormitory that looks just like a prison. Now you have an individual who is going to be funding this enterprise, and the person indicated that, of course, people would be looking at this whole situation, asking what is going on. You can look at the quote up in the upper right-hand corner there. And so the person goes on to talk about the project, as it is called. And the criticisms of the project are these. One, there will be virtual windows versus real windows in this building. And these virtual windows will simulate daylight. And so it is considered a mega dorm, also called a dormzilla. And so this is not a typical dormitory situation. This is not a typical living situation. And it's unclear why the bedrooms will have virtual windows versus real windows, and why instead of real sunlight, there will be a simulation of sunlight, not the real thing. And so again, this is a part of that whole trend that some people are really interested in, of going towards sort of more virtual reality, augmented reality. That is a part of what this dynamic is structured to be. Now, again, you have some people, and this is a party that they would like to attend. This is interesting to them. This is appealing to them. This sounds like home to them. The description goes on to indicate that students would live in 8-person living units that are sealed. This is the quote, are sealed environments with no exterior windows in the shared space or in 94% of the bedrooms, unquote. And then the next quote is, the spaces are wholly dependent on artificial light and mechanical ventilation. This is a $1.5 billion project, and it is indicated as a social and psychological experiment with an unknown impact on the lives and personal development of students. Again, this is part of the criticism. The building has been described, the planned building has been described as a death trap. And the vision is that students would be living like rats. It's also indicated that it's unclear how emergency exits would be accessed, and the stability of this supposed ventilation system. There is a quote about nothing being inherently good or bad, but its manner of usage making it so. And this is the case with technology. And so what you see here with this proposed living situation is a manifestation, a highlighting, a spotlighting, a showcasing of this technology. Now, technology doesn't necessarily have to be either good or bad. Again, its manner of usage makes it whatever it is. And so sometimes technology, focuses on, creating things that are generally helpful, a method, a system of art, doing something, creating something. Doing crafting things. However, there is another side to this idea of crafting, and that seems to be inherent in a number of these projects that are going on that will, again, bring greatness. So you have this gigantic building, this great building with this supposed great idea. But craft technology also has another meaning and another side to it. And so sometimes people have to step back and really think about what it is they are looking at and what they are dealing with. Sometimes technology is good, and then sometimes technology is not so good. And so another way of understanding technology is the word craft. And so craft can mean a number of things. So sometimes people will think craft is about making soap. However, craft also is about being crafty and deceitful, and baiting and switching. And so that's what you see in Strong's Concordance. And so the biblical understanding of craft is this particular definition, this idea of scheming. And so technology is not always beneficial. It's not just universally beneficial. Sometimes there are problems with technology. And again, it comes down to the manner of usage. And this also goes back to the dynamic of what is comfortable to what groups of people. And so you will have certain people who are at home in Gotham, that Gotham is comfortable for them. And so technology is very comfortable for them. And so living in a space such as the one that is planned is something that for some individuals that might be considered comfortable. But there are other groups of people for whom that would not be comfortable. And so you have other groups of students who would not be at home in that type of environment. Gog's home does not feel like home to them. And so who are these people that we are talking about, these students that will not be comfortable in that type of environment? We are talking about the students who are not going to be comfortable being separated from nature and the earth. And so there are some people groups who experience themselves as at one with nature and as a part of the earth. And so those human beings, those humans, that humanity will not be comfortable. Those students are not going to be comfortable in an environment that takes them that far away from God's creation into God's creation or man's creation or whoever is creating. And so that's not going to be as comfortable for those students. And also, that type of environment that is described is not sustainable for those who are considered indigenous to the earth. And so again, everyone's not going to be comfortable at every party. Every party is not for every person. You have some individuals who like lots of bells and whistles. They like the technology. They like the advancements. They like all of the toys. And those individuals will more likely be more comfortable in that artificial type of environment. And so you have other individuals, however, basic human beings, the indigenous of the earth, coming from the ground, earthly beings, Adam. You have those individuals who are more base, more connected to the earth, more connected to nature. And so those individuals will require something else in order to sustain. Now, that something else is not as glamorous in the eyes of many people as the other things with all of the bells and whistles and the virtual realities and all of those things. And you don't have all of the amenities again. However, it is what works for certain groups of people. And so it's just important for you to have an understanding going forward about who you are and what type of person you are. Are you the person who is more at home in Gotham, or are you a person who is more at home with the earth from which you understand yourself as coming? As we begin to wrap this up, I just want to bring your attention back to what is supposed to be a Choctaw word for the world or for humanity. And it's very interesting. That word is mama or moma, and that is the word that defines the world. And in some instances, everyone within the world, this word, mama, moma. And so for those who are very focused on living more advanced, technologically advanced lives, more augmented realities, they may not be comfortable with mama, moma. And that is their prerogative. However, there are some individuals who are more at home with mama. Remember, knowledge is power, and may the creator of all that is sustain you and continue to fill you with first knowledge, and from that knowledge, an understanding of the knowledge, and from that understanding, wisdom about what to do with the knowledge, and from that, a discernment related to the knowledge, the understanding, and the wisdom.